Okay, so happy Tuesday, everyone. I wore bright colors and changed the way we're facing so you could actually see me today. We'll start in a seat, either on your shins or legs crossed in Sukhasana, so Vajrasana, Virasana, Sukhasana. If none of those things make any sense to you, just sit how you'd like to sit. I do prefer sitting at least on one block. It can be a combination of things. It could be 2 blocks, it could be a block and a blanket, a bolster, what have you. But just so that you can sit comfortably with hips above knees. Take your time to land. And as you come into your seat, once you get into your seat, allow your eyes to close. And when the eyes close, just check in with yourself if you're just squeezing your eyes shut, right? You're shutting your eyes. It's a really active sensation. And instead, imagine that the eyelids themselves could just drape. So that the place between the brows is soft. And the place behind the ears where maybe your jaw intersects could soften down. If you're sitting on your shins, imagine that the backs of the thighs and the backs of the calves could soften into one another. And the tips of the toes to the knees could get longer. Providing you with more foundation, more place to spread out on the earth beneath you. And from here, place your hands on your pelvis and grip onto one hip and the next, kind of like you'd stand with one fist on the hip. Instead, just grip the hips. And those of you who've been in class for the last 2 weeks, we're going to play with some similar foundational aspects of the practice and map our bodies in similar ways that we've been doing. And those of you who haven't been in class with me for a while, just start to rock your pelvis forward and back. And you can use your hands to do so. And as you rock forward and back, just feel or imagine, right? I'm going to call on you to use your imagination. Imagine that the pelvis were a bowl. And as you tip forward, when you tip forward, you're spilling something out of the pelvic bowl. And when you tip back, you're spilling something back behind you, maybe down the block or down the bolster. So just tipping forward and back. And see if the movement could come actually from the pelvis, like maybe you physically manipulate the hands to do the movement. Because a lot of the times what I see is this sort of swinging back and forth with the heart. See if you can keep the chest pretty stable, and it's just the pelvis. Good. And then once you've got that image in your mind of the pelvic bowl, you allow yourself to land in center, so not spilling forward or back. But rather now the waters of the pelvic bowl are still. And let the hands come back to the thighs or the knees, wherever they were before you put your hands on your hips. So we have the image of the pelvic bowl, not spilling, water still. Now bring your awareness to your right sits bone, your right butt bone, that bony protuberance that comes out of the cheek. And imagine that you could draw an imaginary line through the pelvis from the right butt bone to the left hip bone, so the front of the pelvis. And then on the other side, it's the left sits bone to the right hip bone. We draw another diagonal line through the pelvis. Left sits bone, right hip bone. right sits bone, left hip bone. So just imagining those two lines, and they'll intersect in what we'll call the center. And if you overlap those two images, it's the center of the pelvic bowl. And we're going to imagine this as our center, our spit, our central channel. And imagine now that the place where the two lines meet is this long pole through the body, right? Going down out of the pelvic floor and all the way up out of the crown of the head. And now if you're a really tactile person like me, it might do you some good to bring your hands to your rib cage now, eyes still closed, and hold on to the base of the rib cage. And imagine where your right thumb is. That's the sort of the outer edge of the right shoulder blade, or the back low right floating rib. So edge of the right shoulder blade to the left nipple, draw a line. And then bottom tip of the left shoulder blade, or roughly where your left thumb is, to your right nipple, draw a line. Right nipple, left shoulder blade, left nipple, right shoulder blade. Again, it's a diagonal line across now the thoracic region, the rib cage, where the two lines meet. That's your center. So still your spit, align the two places, and imagine that you could root down through pelvic floor and lift up towards the sky out of crown of the head. And I know it's a lot to invoke the imagination this early on a Tuesday morning, but just imagine that now you have all this volume in the torso. And now with the breath, fill up the volume of the torso, breathing outward from the center. And as you breathe outward from the center, start to lengthen the exhale out. And those of you who are familiar with Samavriti, or counting the length of the inhale and the length of the exhale, you may do so. And those of you who are just joining me, know that this breath is primary. And I'll be really specific about the body as we go on through class together, but know that that comes after the breath. So if you find yourself out of breath, unable to maintain a long inhale and a long exhale, and you come back to that first, the body is second. Three more breaths here, breathing circumferentially outward from the center. After your last exhale, drop the chin down towards the chest. Take a moment to thank yourself for showing up here today, for taking the time. And gently blink the eyes open. Come off your prop and into tabletop. As you come off your prop and into tabletop, if you feel like you've lost a sensation, or if your feet have gone offline, you can tap them. Maybe lengthening one leg and then the next. Good. And then come into center, place the hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. Start to inhale, lift the heart, lift the tail. And as you exhale, round. Good. So inhale, lifting heart, lifting tail. And exhaling, round. And as we move through this pretty simple cat and cow, I'm going to start to involve a little bit more of our awareness into the tops of our feet. So if your toes are tucked, untuck them. And imagine you could press down in all 10 toenails, that's what those are called. So that from knee to shin gets longer, more connected, more stable. And now bring your awareness to your pelvis and see if the pelvis can be the way that you control this cat and cow. So a lot of times we press down into the earth to round the spine. Can it instead be an unfurling from the pelvis? The beginning of the rounding is the tucking, right? The drawing in. Those of you who have been mapping the pelvis for the last, I think it's been 2 weeks, see if you can notice the center of the pelvis, and that's almost like our steering wheel. Good. And then from here, allow yourself to move as you wish, right? Cat and cow can be pretty strict and linear. If you want to move around in circles, you may move around in circles. If you want to move forward and back from child's and up, you may do so. If the wrists ever give you grief, you can tend down to fingertips or even come to stand on the shins. Right? Just let yourself sort of unfold naturally into movement that feels nice for you today. Everyone's doing different things with their bodies now. All that I ask that stays structured is the length of the inhale, the length of the exhale. Everything else is DIY, choose your own adventure. If you want to flip your wrists, you flip your wrists. If you don't, you don't. About 3 more breaths, doing as you wish here. And then bring yourself into center. Keep your hands underneath the shoulders. Press down into the index finger knuckle point and tuck your toes now. So before we're pressing down into the tops of the toes, now we're trying to find the balls of the feet. Press into the hands, hover the knees off the floor. Yeah, if you're wearing socks, now would be a great time to take them off because it might get a little slippery. So hover the knees off the floor and imagine that you could drag the heels of the palms towards the toes and the toes towards the heels of the palms. And then as you hover the knees, start to sink the hips back and imagine that the thighs could catch the torso as you press into the hands and lengthen the hips back and up. So it's a really short downward facing dog. Ideally, one day, maybe not today, the thighs catch the torso. And as the thighs catch the torso, notice how much you're sort of tipping forward into the balls of the feet. Can you allow the heels to reach back as you keep the bend of the knees? And then from here, imagine that you could press into the hands and lengthen the hips up and back. And just as much as the hips lengthen up and back, the bend of the knees stays. Good. From here, come forward. Keep contact with torso and thighs as much as possible, as much as possible, as much as possible. And then you'll come forward. The knees will hover. You'll land the knees down. You'll sink the hips back. The elbows will bend. Imagine they could land in like a little shape of an 11 and then sink back, let the head drop. It may not touch the floor. It depends on the length of your spine. Good. Inhale, press into the shins. Come up and forward. Come into your cow pose, heart lifts, right? The pelvis is what brings you there. Tuck the toes. Nice and slow exhale, hover the knees. Imagine the thighs could catch the torso as you lift up into a really short downward facing dog. So we're gonna start to move through this with the breath. The inhale is going to draw you forward. Keep contact as much as possible. The exhale, the knees touch down. You'll sink the hips back. The elbows track in towards the midline as you drop the head down. Inhale, come up and forward, tabletop into cow pose, heart lifts. Toes tuck, exhale, knees hover, sink hips back, find the thighs, then lift up. Good. Your breath is what moves you. The inhale draws you forward. Keep contact as much as possible. The exhale lands you down. Elbows come down, head drops. Continue with your breath. I'm going to keep talking about other things as we go. As you inhale, come up and forward again, the pelvis moves you into cow pose. And it's the pelvis, the perineum, the center of the pelvis drawing back towards the back of the room. Thighs catch you as you go. Now, I know a lot of you have been practicing the Katonah method with me for a while, and you'll know that I'll say this all the time. The torso meeting the thighs may not work for you. It may not land in your body. That doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you're a good yogi, right? It might have everything to do with connective tissues. It might have everything to do with the way bones sit on bones. So again, that's why I say the breath is the most important part. That's the primary. And everything else about how we organize our bodies, maybe we got there, maybe we don't. Good, once more with this really compact, tiny little sequence. And the next time you land with your hips sinking back towards the heels, you can allow your arms to go to where is most comfortable for you for child's pose. If you want to widen the knees out, widen the knees out. If child's pose is not comfortable for you, you can come to sit on your shins. Take a moment, regardless of your position, to map the pelvis even here. Not to orient your body in a different way, but just to be aware of where it is. So find your right butt bone to your left hip bone, draw a line. Left butt bone to right hip bone, draw a line. Do the same thing with your rib cage, right shoulder blade, left nipple. Left shoulder blade, right nipple. And imagine that you could breathe volume into those spaces. Good. From here, slowly walk your hands back towards your knees. If the knees are wide, you'll narrow them up. You're going to sit on your shins for just a moment. It's not going to be forever. So if you find yourself being like, I don't have my prop, right? You can grab it, but we won't be here forever. From here, inhale, reach the arms up, interlace the fingers. And as you interlace the fingers, flip the palms up towards the sky. And as you flip the palms up towards the sky, imagine that you could make a little basket with the hands and you're catching something dropping from the ceiling, or even better, you're holding your ceiling up with your own arms. Frightening thought. Good. Map the pelvis again, so find the perineum down, right, the central part of your spit down. Again, map the rib cage again and find the center of the rib cage. It's a one long line from perineum, right, pelvic floor, up to the crown of the head, and now up through the center of the hands, the webbing of the hands. Let's call this the third hand. So pelvic floor to the hands, really long. And then imagine the breath could be voluminous here. And then from here, bring your pubic bone, the center of your pelvis, draw that forward as you imagine that the pelvis drawing forward could lift the heart up, up, and up. And maybe the gaze shifts towards the sky. Good. And then from here, press into the shins and really slowly come to stand on the shins. But remember, it's the pubic bone drawing forward, lengthening to the sternum, lifting up, and don't lose contact with the tops of your feet. So keep contact with the tops of your feet. Pubic bone draws forward and up, Not a pelvic tilt, just drawing forward so you can come up and off the pelvis. Go ahead, take one more inhale. Exhale, slowly sit back on your shins, drop the arms, close the eyes. Feel into the body, notice sensation. Perhaps heat, energy, fatigue. And breathe circumferentially, right? All ways outward from center. Gently blink the eyes open. Come forward to tabletop. Walk your knees back or your hands forward. Give yourself a longer stance. Tuck the toes. Lift the hips up and back. Come into what I'm going to air quotes normal downward facing dog. Right? Just pedal it out. Walk the feet out. If you're well practiced and you always walk the feet out, you always sway the hips side to side, then do that with your hands instead. Right? See if you can move away from your first nature in your practice, if you have a first nature. Right? What's habitual? What's a pattern? What's habit? Good. And then from here, bend into the knees and imagine that you're coming into that same place where the thighs catch the torso. Hands pressed down into the floor, lifting the hips up and back. Notice if you're coming high and forward on the balls of the feet, can the heels draw back as much as you press down into the balls of the feet? Keep the bend of the knees. Good. From here, shift forward, plank pose. When you come into plank pose, don't drop the pelvis down, but keep it buoyant. We're going to map the body here. If this is absolutely excruciating for you, know that's going to be the longest plank we'll hold, I promise. Press into the earth, map the pelvis. Right butt bone to left hip bone, draw a line. Left butt bone to right hip bone, draw a line. Find the place where the two lines meet, intersect, center of the pelvis. Right shoulder blade to left nipple, draw a line. Left shoulder blade to right nipple, draw a line. The place where those two lines meet matches up with the place where the two lines meet in the pelvis, so it's a long spit. Good. Lift your hips up a little bit higher, Sarah. Yeah, good. Now from right shoulder to left heel, draw a line. So fun. Left shoulder to right heel, draw a line. Imagine you could expand away from those two places. Promise it's the longest one. Take an inhale. Exhale, slowly bend the knees. Hips up, downward facing dog. Walk the hands back in space. Walk the hands back towards the feet. Measure 2 fists with distance apart, right? Like your fist bumping the floor. And then once you measure, drop the arms down, bend the knees. Maybe the thighs catch the torso. Let the head hang nice and heavy. If you want to sway, you sway. If you want to bounce, you bounce. Regardless of what you're doing here, can you breathe deep, even, and smooth? Let the back of the head be long. Notice where you're placing weight in the feet. Are you tipping forward towards the toes or back towards the heels? Can you find the center of each foot? Bend into the knees a little bit deeper and slowly roll the spine up vertebra by vertebra. Keep the bend of the knees as you go. And as you roll yourself up, when you come to stand, close the eyes. Feel from the pelvic floor to the crown of the head, you could get longer. You could become more expansive, more voluminous. Gently blink the eyes open. Reach the arms up and overhead and grab onto opposite elbows. I'm a little close to this bookshelf, so I'm going to step forward. So as you grab onto opposite elbows, imagine that you could get a ball and mitt feel with the center of the palm into the elbow. And when you lift it up and over your head, if you've got a bun there like I do, you're going to have a little bit of an issue. But bring the arms up and overhead and imagine that the elbows could go outward into the palms. Right? So imagine that the elbow points move outward into the palms. It gives you a little bit more space. Good. And then again, map, pelvic floor, up to the crown of the head, nice and long. Good. From here, bend into the knees, slowly sink the hips back in space. Good. As you sink the hips back in space, you're going to come through chair pose and then slowly land the torso down on the thighs. When you land the torso down on the thighs, you pause, let the elbow points drop down. And then as you inhale, you're going to unhinge into chair pose. Exhale to stay, broaden collarbones. Good. Inhale, come to stand all the way up. Pubic bone to sternum lengthens, lift, broaden collarbones, tiny back bend. Exhale, slowly sink the hips down and back. And then you're going to very slowly fold, maybe thighs catch torso. So this is a really slow hinging and unhinging out of chair pose. Inhale comes up through chair. Good. Exhale, slowly come to stand. Inhale, pubic bone to sternum lifts. The pubic bone comes forward just a touch. Exhale, sink down into chair. Good. And then slowly drop down. If your legs are absolutely killing you, you can lengthen the legs here as you fold, but remember to drop your seat as you inhale, lift yourself up and forward, chair pose. Good, exhale to stay, stay. Elbow points into the hands. Good, and then this time release the arms, come to stand, close the eyes, feel the shift. Right, this pause to notice the effects of our practice. Heat, energy, lack of. All right, blink the eyes open, take an inhale, sweep the arms up this time. And exhale, fold all the way down. Inhale up half the way, draw the heart forward. And then exhale, walk yourself into downward facing dog. Knees bent, hips lifted. Good. Inhale, come forward, plank pose. Bring your mind's eye to your perineum, to the crown of the head. Find volume, find length. Land the knees down. Sink the hips back, child's pose. As you come up and forward into tabletop, draw the hands underneath the shoulders. Walk the knees over to the right-hand side of your mat. Good. Take your right knee behind your left knee. And then walk the whole package of the legs into the center of your mat. Good. And then from here, tap into the feet, right? Reconnect with the tops of your feet. And go as wide as you can go with the feet out and away from each other. Like they're little magnets and they're repelling each other. Good. And then bring them back close towards each other, as close as they can go, and then find the place in between those two places, right? So go sort of medium distance away from each other. And then from here, map. Right now it's right shoulder to left hip, draw a line. Left shoulder, right hip, draw a line. And imagine that you could get more voluminous here. So if the left side's super short, make it a little bit longer. Inhale, lift the heart, lift the tail. Good. Exhale, now find the tops of the toes, lift up and back, cross-legged downward facing dog. As you find your cross-legged downward facing dog, find the balls of the feet and then find the backs of the heels drawing back. Find the back knee, it's your right knee, bring it in towards the front, right? So like a little puzzle piece, draw the right knee forward. Right shoulder to left hip, nice and long. Left shoulder to right hip, nice and long. Shift forward to plank pose. Imagine you keep the balls of the feet on the earth. Imagine that you could map the pelvis and see if you can get it back onto its spit. That might involve lifting the left hip up just a little bit higher. Slowly land the left knee down, then the right knee down. Keep your cross-legged tabletop. Good. Those of you who have blocks, grab onto your blocks. Those of you who don't, you'll walk your hands back. We're gonna all press into the tops of our feet and come to stand onto our cross-legged shins. If you know that you can do this without support, you do this without support. If you're looking at me do this without support and you're like, what the fuck? I've done this like 100 times. In the first 50, I fell over. So if there's a wall near you, you use it. If you have blocks, you can build a little tower and you use it. Press down into the tops of the feet. So find the tops of the feet here. Good. Those of you who have the front knee lifted, right, for whatever reason, we're not going to judge that. You can pop something underneath the front of that knee. It'll give you more space to press evenly into the tops of the feet and the knees. Good. And then imagine, right? I'm saying imagine now because we're crossing bone over bone, but imagine that you could map the pelvis, and from perineum to crown of the head, you could get longer. Now from right shoulder to left butt bone, map. Left shoulder to right butt bone, map. Right? The circumstances have changed because we're crossing our femurs. Good. If you're stable and able, you will interlace your fingers the non-habitual way and bring the palms up towards the sky. Right? If you're stable and able, if you're not, you're still working on the stability, squeezing the inner thighs in just like you need to squeeze them in for plank pose with crossed legs. Press down into the tops of the feet. As you lengthen the hands up towards the sky, imagine that you could hold up your ceiling, right? Are you tipping the ceiling forward? No, you're pressing up. Good, and then draw the pubic bone forward to lift the sternum to get longer in the front of the body. And getting longer in the front of the body doesn't mean dumping into the back, but lengthening from the tailbone to the back of the head as well. Take one more inhale here. Regardless of where you are, exhale, release the hands if you've got the hands. If you've got support, you've got support. You're gonna walk yourself back down to your tabletop. From here, you're gonna take your right hand into the center of the mat. Again, imagine that the left hip could move back in space. Maybe even bring your left hand into your left hip. Press down into the right hand, press down into the tops of the feet. Bring the left hand to the sacrum. And imagine that you could lift the left elbow, draw the right side of the rib cage towards the left, and twist. And I was trying to figure this out, but I can't remember if double helixes actually twist in opposite directions, but imagine that they did, right? And your legs are twisting one way, hips are trying to neutralize as the thoracic region, the rib cage, twists the other way. Good, if you're stable and able, you lift the left arm high towards the sky, reach the left arm up and over, look down. Good. Uncross the hands, uncross the legs. Couple rounds of cat and cow. And then bring yourself into center. Walk the knees over to your left. Take your left knee behind your right knee, snuggle it in, cross-legged tabletop. Make sure the whole package of the legs is in the center of your mat. Like from your hands to your knees, could draw a triangle. And then tap the tops of the feet, go out super wide. And then taps of the feet really close in. And then go to a place where somewhere in between. From here, draw the right hip back in space. Lift the heart up and forward. Find your toes, lift up and back. Downward facing dog with crossed legs. Find the balls of the feet on the earth. The left knee bends into the right. From left shoulder to right hip, get long. Good. From right shoulder to left hip, just draw a line. Don't get long. It's already long on its own. Good. From here, shift forward, plank pose. Again, left shoulder to right hip, get long. Yes, that's it, rocks. Nice. Very slowly lunge the right knee down, left knee snuggles down in between. Start to find your prop fort, and you're going to slowly come to stand on the shins. So again, know that just because you had one set up on one side doesn't mean it's going to be the same way on the other side. If you've got blocks and you want to use them as a little tower, you use them. If you've got a blanket that you want to slide underneath the front knee, you do so. If this is like your first, second, 50th time doing this and you're still like, I don't know how to get here, just take your time. Yeah, hands on the pelvis is really nice. Good. Find the tops of the feet. So notice if you're just sitting in the patella. Find the tops of the feet. Imagine from tops of the feet to the knees could get long and stable. Map the pelvis, left butt bone to right hip bone. Draw a line. Right butt bone to left hip bone. Draw a line. Right now, this is just our imagination. It might not change anything physiologically, but imagine perineum to crown of the head, nice and long. Good. Map the rib cage now too. Right shoulder blade, left nipple. Left shoulder blade, right nipple. That brings my torso back online. Good. From here, interlace the hands if you're stable and able. If you're not, you're still working on stability. Squeezing the inner thighs in towards each other like you needed to for plank pose with crossed legs. Those of you who've got the hands up, imagine again that you're holding the ceiling up or you're catching something in a little basket with your hands. Perineum to tops, to middle of that hand, up, up, up. From pubic bone, or from pubis rather, front of the pelvis to sternum gets really long in the same way that the tailbone to the back of the head stays really long. Good, and then breathe. Good, take one more full inhale here. Exhale, slowly release. Notice how you come out. Come out the same way you came in, with control and attention. If you use your props to get down, use your props to get down, ain't no thing. Once you come down, bring your left hand in front of the face. And really press down into the left hand. It's almost like you're trying to round your back, get some space away from the floor. Bring the right hand to the sacrum, back of the pelvis. Imagine the middle finger could point towards the tailbone. Press down into the tops of the feet. Squeeze the inner thighs in towards each other as the right elbow lifts towards the sky, and you broaden your collarbones towards the right-hand side of your room. Good, and now once we have that, map the pelvis so it comes back online, and the perineum points towards the back of your room, crown of the head points towards the front of your room, and imagine that the body were a double helix. If I'm right in that double helix thing, if any of you guys are like, knowledgeable about that, correct me. Good. If you're stable and able and the right arm can lift and it doesn't change the game for your shoulder, your neck, your breath, you may do so. Good. If the arm is up, slowly bring it over the head, slowly look down. Hand plants. Tuck the toes now, lift the hips up and back, downward facing dog with crossed legs. Good. Excuse me. From here, lift your left leg high towards the sky. And when you lift your left leg high towards the sky, bend into the standing leg. So bend into the right leg. And imagine that maybe the right thigh could catch the right side of your torso as you extend the left leg back in space. Good, and extend out of the left heel. Good. From here, shift slowly forward. Draw the left knee in towards the nose like you're gonna kiss it. Pause here and draw the right heel back in space. Draw the front knee forward like they're opposites. And then step the foot forward in the center of the mat. Good. In the center of the mat, the left foot lands and then toe heel it over to the right. Na, 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 na. Haven't done this in a while. Draw the front knee forward, back heel back in space. So that's the polarity here. Find the perineum to the crown of the head, lengthen. Find right shoulder to left hip, lengthen. Good. Right heel to left hip, lengthen. Good. Slowly land the back knee down. Press down into the top of the back foot. Press down into the front foot and maybe slowly rise, right? If you come up and you're like, whoo, that's okay. Draw in towards center. Good. An image I really like is imagining that your legs are scissors and the point where the two legs of the scissors meets is your pelvis. So they're just grazing each other. Left inner thigh back, right inner thigh forward. Draw in. Press down into the back of the top foot, top of the back foot. Good. If you're stable and able, you'll lift your arms up. Right? That's a conditional. If. If the arms are up, keep the structure of the legs, but imagine the pubic bone to sternum could lift. So invite a length into the front of the body like you're back bending. Take an inhale here. Exhale, slowly frame the front foot. Extend the back leg. Plant the hands, step the front foot back into cross-legged downward facing dog. So now the left knee is the knee that you see. The right knee moves into the back of the left. Hips move up and back. If you want more fire in your practice, right, you can just shift forward to plank pose and back. If you're like, why the hell would I do that? Then you just don't. The right leg, your back leg, it lifts. As you lift the right leg, the back leg, bend into the standing leg. It's your left leg. And imagine that the thigh could catch the torso as you extend the right heel back in space. Good. From here, slowly draw the right knee in through a knee to nose crunch. As you draw the right knee into a knee to nose crunch, pause here, draw the left heel back, right knee forward, like they're polarities, right? Opposites. From here, step the right foot down in the center of the mat. Good, so the right knee steps down into the center and then it toe heels over to the left. So we're crossing the legs on our lunge. Good. Slowly land the back knee down. Press down into the top of the back foot. Good, and slowly rise. Good. Again, this is the point of the scissors where the legs separate. As the right knee draws forward, you press down into the back of the foot. Woo. Draw in towards the center line. Right inner thigh back, left inner thigh forward. And then perineum faces down as crown of the head lifts. Good. If you're stable and able and you'd like to, you can lift your arms. So many conditionals there. There's so much work to be done, even with hands on blocks or hands on the floor. Regardless of where you are, pubic bone to sternum lengthens. Be wary of dropping the pelvis down towards the floor. Keep it elevated as you do so. Good. Take one more inhale here. Exhale, hands land down, frame the front foot. Step the right foot back in front of the left, cross-legged downward facing dog. Good. This time the left leg, the back leg lifts. The back leg lifts, you bend into the standing leg. Maybe the thigh catches the torso. Extend the back heel back as if the heel and the hands are opposites, right? You're getting so much volume in the torso here. From here, left knee through knee to nose crunch. Left knee and right foot are opposites. Extend, extend, extend. Step the foot forward. Middle of the mat. Good. Those of you who have blocks, it's a nice place to have blocks here underneath the hands. If you've been working this kind of flow with me for a while, maybe don't use the blocks anymore. Up to you. Left shoulder, right hip, lengthen. Right shoulder, left hip, lengthen. Good. Draw the collarbones up and forward. Those of you who have blocks, bring them onto their highest height. Give yourself a break. Those of you not using blocks, come onto fingertips. Draw inner thighs in towards each other. Walk the blocks or fingertips out in front of you. And imagine now that hips to hands could get really long. So go even longer so that you're not actually using the blocks or your hands for support. It's just a way to feel length in the spine. Good. Crown of the head, perineum long. From here, walk your blocks up and over to the left as if you're going up and over to the left-hand corner of your mat. Good. Those of you who have breasts, you may need to put your hand on your left thigh and lift the boobs up and over so that you can find torso and thigh meeting. Those of you who don't, lucky you. Good. From here, map, right shoulder, left hip, long. Good. If you feel incredibly unstable here, you can bring the block down to its lowest height. You can bring your right hand closer to your left foot. Those of you who feel okay, you'll stay light on the right hand fingertips, left hand to the sacrum. Middle finger points towards the tailbone. And then you'll lift the left elbow up towards the sky. Press down into the ball of the left foot, the heel of the right foot. Good. Breathe. If it's not anything dramatic for your shoulder, your neck, your breath, you'll lift your left arm up. Slowly, left arm up and overhead. Find your blocks. Walk the blocks down the right-hand side of your mat. You're going to come into a wide-legged forward fold. Walk with the blocks or without over towards the right foot. Bend into the right knee. Draw the collarbones up and forward. Good. Good. Then from here, come back through center. Bend back into the left knee. Keep the collarbones up and forward. Good. Bring the blocks with you if you brought them to the side. Walk yourself forward. This time you're going to step yourself into what I'm going to call sort of neutral stance. So left foot is still forward, right heel back. Now we're in a normal, right, railroad track. Good. Right hand down, left arm high towards the sky. How easy, how lovely, how freeing does this feel now? From here, left arm up and overhead. Ooh, if you've got a wall, you touch the wall. Right knee down. Swivel the right foot out to the right. Send the left leg back in space for Vashisthasana on a knee. Left foot down for more stability. Left leg up. Good. From here, look down. Left hand down, right knee down. Sink back, child's pose. As you sink into child's pose or Vajrasana, whatever feels best for you, map the pelvis again, find volume. Map the rib cage, find volume. Yeah, if you feel that you need to move through something and it's not child's, you can do so. Good. Come up and forward into tabletop. Walk the knees over to the left. Over to the right. Take your right knee behind your left. So right knee behind the left. Left knee is the knee that you see as you come up and back. Cross-legged downward facing dog. Bend of the knees. So the right knee comes into the left, right? Find your stance. Right shoulder, left hip, nice and long. Left shoulder, right hip, nice and long. Slow and controlled. The right leg lifts up and back. You're going to bend into the standing leg, the left leg. Maybe torso meets thigh. Extend out of the right heel. As if you could get taller by way of imagination. Draw the right knee into a knee to nose crunch. Right knee, left heel. Draw away from each other. Step the right foot forward and into the center of the mat. If you want props, you get props, right? Blocks on their highest height, fingertips, what have you. Soup cans. Good. Draw the front knee forward, back heel back. That's your polarity. Perineum, pelvic floor, back, crown of the head, long. Left shoulder, right hip, map. Right shoulder, left hip, map. Good. Slowly walk the hands forward. On blocks or fingertips, you get really long. Almost like you're Superman, you can lift the hands up and fly. Right inner thigh moves back, left inner thigh moves forward. Good, walk the hands up and over towards the right-hand corner of your mat. Good. Pick your pelvis up a little bit more, Sarah. So you get a little more air in your tires, and then you can broaden the collarbones even more, almost like you're in cow pose. Yeah, good. Okay, inner thighs in towards each other. If you're really wobbly here, you just bring the left hand closer to the front foot, or you bring the right hand to the sacrum. Good. And imagine that the elbow could broaden the collarbones, could widen the hips. The middle finger tracks where the tailbone is going, and imagine perineum to crown of the head, one straight line. A little bit like twister. Good. If the arm can reach up and it reaches up and it doesn't feel like it's going to cause you any strife, it reaches up. Good. Reach up and overhead. Grab onto your props. Walk the blocks over down to the left-hand side of your mat, wide-legged forward fold, adjust your feet as you need. Right away, bend into the left knee. Good, hands on blocks or fingertips, run in collarbones. Good, and then bend back into the right knee. Good. And then turn the toes towards the front of your mat. Step the left foot out to the left. Right, find sort of neutral, natural, how we've been taught, railroad track in our lunge. Good, step back, plank pose. Beautiful. Bend knees, come up and back, downward facing dog. So now in your down dog, notice how much space, how much volume you have in the torso. Bring all that volume and space forward to plank pose. And then bring it up and back to down dog. Good. Slowly walk the hands back towards the feet, the back of the mat. Bend the knees as you do so. Inhale up half the way. Exhale, fold. Inhale, root to rise, come all the way up. As you rise, step down into the left foot, and imagine left foot steps down, right knee comes up, like they're trying to stretch away from each other. Good. Hands come down, right foot comes down, pause, stand. Inhale, sweep the arms up. And exhale, fold all the way down. Inhale, up half the way. Exhale, fold. Inhale, root to rise. Come to stand all the way up. When you come to stand, arms lift, left knee lifts. It's like the right foot steps down so the left knee can lift. Good. Step it down, arms drop down. Inhale, arms reach. Pubic bone to sternum, maybe lifts. Exhale, fold. Inhale, up half. Exhale, fold. Inhale, root to rise, come to stand. When you come to stand, step down into the left foot, right knee rises. Exhale, hands come down, foot comes down. Inhale, arms reach, maybe pubic bone to sternum lifts. Exhale, fold. Last time like this, inhale, come up half. Exhale, fold. Inhale, root to rise, come all the way up. As you come up, step down into the right foot so the left knee lifts. They're opposites. Exhale, come to stand. Foot drops, arms drop, close the eyes. Feel the shift. Notice the feet. Imagine that from outer right pinky to inner right heel, draw a line. Right big toe to outer right heel, draw a line. 2 lines meet, that's your center. Same for the left. Outer to inner corners, draw lines. Intersect, find the 4 corners of the feet, find the center. Pelvic floor to crown of the head, nice and long. Good. Gently blink the eyes open. Inhale, sweep the arms up. Exhale, fold all the way down. Inhale, up half the way. And exhale, bend the knees, walk yourself forward. From your bent knee down dog, step your right foot forward. Step it into a traditional stance, right? Hips width distance. Good. Find your blocks if you've got blocks. If you don't have blocks, you'll just keep fingers on fingertips. Step your left foot out to the left just a touch and land your back heel down. And let the left heel kick out a bit so the left toes are kind of diagonally going out to the left. And then bend into the front knee even more. If you've got hands on blocks, you can do that thing where you bring the hands out forward and wide. If you've got fingertips, just go a little bit farther forward, like 10 and 2 on a clock. From your left shoulder, map to your right hip without losing the bend of the knee. Maybe you have contact with the thigh. Good. Those of you with blocks, you're gonna walk the blocks back a touch, but don't change the length of your waist. Good. Everyone is going to step into the ball of the right foot, and imagine that from the ball of the right foot, you could lengthen the right hip back in space. Ball of the right foot to the right hip lengthens, but imagine that you could keep connection with the torso and the thigh. Good, so the right leg lengthens by way of pressing into the ball of the foot. Right hip moves back. Good. From here, hands are on fingertips. A couple options, right? So the right leg is moving towards straight. I hate saying the destination as straight because that's not necessarily true for all of us. There's a micro bend in the knee, but it's the ball of the right foot to the right hip that lengthens you back. One option is left hand underneath left shoulder, right? Keeping ourselves nice and wide and broad. Left shoulder to right hip, we draw the line. Right shoulder, left hip, we draw the line. You're facing down for now. Good. From here, maybe the right hand comes onto the sacrum and you brought in your collarbones. These are progressions, not requirements, right? They're just options. As you bring your right hand to the sacrum, imagine that the middle finger could point in the same direction as the tailbone. If you don't know which direction your tailbone's pointing, it's the same direction as your butt crack. Good. Some of you might bring the block closer to the right foot so that you can revolve around the axis of your spine. Some of you might feel like you have space to bring the hand on the outside of the right foot as you keep revolving. But notice the tendency for the right butt to sass out to the right, and imagine that instead you could be that double helix structure, right? The hips are rotating one way and the torso, the thoracic region, is rotating the other. Left side of the heart draws to the right side of the room, and imagine it could spiral up towards the sky. Yes, Sarah. Good. If your hand is on your sacrum, it can stay there forever. If the right arm lifts and it doesn't cause strife in the shoulder, the neck, the breath, you can lift the right arm. Yes. Okay, beautiful. Imagine now, map it, right? Left shoulder to right hip, one long line. Right shoulder to left hip, one long line. Voluminous. Good, slowly look down. Bend into the right leg. Move your blocks to the side. Hands are on fingertips or on blocks out in front of you. Step forward and step into sort of this low squat chair thing. Hands are forward. Thighs catch the torso. If your right hip is screaming, I promise it'll stop in just one moment. Slowly come to stand, come all the way up. That's where my plant is. Nice. Clearly haven't practiced on the side of my room before. Good. And then come to stand. Arms drop down. Good. If there's a wall directly in front of you, step back into the center of your mat. Or a plant. I'm sure that's just only me. Rock forward and back on your feet. As you rock forward and back, again, see if you can identify with your mind's eye, your imagination, all four corners of the feet, the center where there's two lines meet, center of the foot, right? Good. From here, step down into the left foot to bring the right knee up. All right, our polarity. Yes. Remember, this is the hinge of the scissors, right? So even though the legs are separated, inner thighs move towards each other. Now, what you do with your hands here is up to you. You can bring your hands into heart center, especially if you feel like your shoulders are being taxed a lot. If you feel okay, you'll flip the palms, right? Interlace and flip the palms up towards the sky. Good. From here, bend into the standing leg. The thighs are going to swipe past each other as you start to draw the heart forward. Imagine the torso could stay in one line with each other as you slowly extend into warrior three. Right heel moves back. The standing leg is bent. The palms are flipped forward towards the front of your room. Imagine that left shoulder to right hip could be one long line. The right hip moves off to its own side. Yes. Very slowly reach back in space. Find the right foot back in space. Come through a high lunge. Inhale here. Exhale, hands plant. Make your way back to downward facing dog. As you make your way back to downward facing dog, if you want to move through stuff, you move through stuff. I'm not going to identify what stuff is today. Yeah, a lot of you are well-practiced vinyasa yogis, so you know. Good. Beautiful. From here, left foot steps forward. Boop. Step it into hips width distance. The right foot will step out to the right as you land the back heel down. So be wary of second side syndrome, right? You know-ish where we're going. Let's see if you can take it slow like you didn't know. So right toes up towards the right-hand corner of your room, your mat. Hands on blocks or on fingertips. Bend into the front knee, and for a moment, find left shoulder to right hip and move the right hip off onto its own line. Good, broaden the collarbones. Good. Yeah, even arms lengthen. Really find tons of length in the torso here. This is like the primary point of this twist, is to lengthen the torso as we go. Good. From here, bring the right hand and the left hand back if they're out long, and step into the ball of the left foot to lengthen the left hip back in space. See if you can keep your torso connected for as long as possible. Ball of the left foot, left hip back in space. Good. Now, blocks or fingertips underneath the shoulders, disconnect torso from thighs. Again, it's left shoulder to right hip. Draw a line. So right hip goes off onto its own side. That's it, Sarah. That's it, Sunny. Nice, Dave. Broaden your collarbones a bit, Dave. Lift your chest up a bit. Yes, good. And then from here, right hand can be on a block or on the floor directly underneath the right shoulder. The left hand can come onto the sacrum. Left elbow up towards the sky. Revolve triangle is like no freaking joke. So many progressions here, so many options here. None of them are requirements, okay? We can stay here, working ball of the left foot to the left hip, working the map, left shoulder, right hip, right shoulder, left hip. Crown of the head to perineum, nice and long. Or if you feel comfortable, block, fingertips, hand comes closer to the left foot. Then hand on the sacrum, middle finger pointing in the same direction as the tailbone. Good, as you spiral around, maybe the left arm lifts. Good, again, know that you can bring the right hand to the outside edge of the left foot, but the spine stays long. From left shoulder to right hip, map. Right shoulder, left hip. Check in with the pelvic floor to the crown of the head. Good, yeah, if the left arm wants to lift, it can lift, but don't let it change the game for the shoulder, the neck, the breath. Nice. Oh, so beautiful, guys. So much space. Beautiful. Take one more full breath. Good. Really slowly unwind. Look down, move the props to the side and up and forward. If you've got blocks, bring them way far forward. Bend into the front knee, step up. Imagine the right foot could meet the left foot in the same shape. Torso catch the thighs, broaden the collarbones, use the legs, slowly come to stand. Sweet relief when you come to stand in the front of the left hip. Know that if you have a wall like directly in front of you or a plant straight up in your face, you can step back. Good. Shift weight into the feet. Find all the ways that you connect, four corners, where the two lines meet. Yeah, if you want to go close to a wall, you can go close to a wall. Good. From here, step down into the left foot, and that's what brings the right knee up. So stepping down into the left foot brings the right knee up. Inner thighs in towards each other. So watch how you're externally rotating, Chris. See if you can bring the femur back. Yeah, like that's external rotation. This will be natural. Yeah. Even with your foot, look how your toes are pointing out to the right. Yeah, yeah. Good. Scissors, right? This is the point of the scissors. Hands are where it feels best for you. Remember, if your shoulders are super taxed, hands in heart center. Or interlace non-habitual way, up towards the sky. If you could, you would. I'd hold you here and I'd have us map everything, but that's so arduous and we've worked a lot. So bend into the front knee And hinge at the hips. Hinge at the hips. The thighs, inner thighs swipe past each other. Once they swipe past each other, you extend the right leg. Extend from right heel to that crown, right? The hands interlacing. That's one straight line. Imagine that from left shoulder to right hip could be one long line. The right hip goes off to its right side. Yes. The standing leg is bent to give you more air in the pelvis. Bend into the standing leg and imagine the right hip could lift as much as the left. Yes. Very slowly reach back with the foot. Yeah, if the hands came down to the ground, that's great. The foot comes down. Reach the arms up, high lunge. Good. Hands plant, step back. Downward facing dog. If you want to move through things, you move through things. When you move through the things, don't lose the work. Good. Nice. Slowly come forward, plank pose. From plank pose, come down to your bellies, knees first or not. Good. Once you're on your bellies, drop the hands down alongside the waist. Shake the hips side to side. And then for a moment here, breathe into the mat beneath you and imagine that the breath could move wide, could move long, could move circumferentially. And you have this really direct sort of feedback system of breathing against the floor. So you know that when you breathe down into the belly, you're also breathing into the sides of the waist and the low back. And invite that same awareness into the chest as well. Good. From here, flip onto your back. When you flip onto your back, draw your knees into your chest. With your knees into your chest, just roll around the knees side to side in circles, whatever feels best for you. Good. Now I know we came down kind of quickly, so if there's any last thing that you would like to do with your body before we come to rest, you do so. But if you're ready for final Shavasana, now would be the time to get yourself set up. That can involve putting socks on, long sleeves, propping the backs of the knees up. Those of you who are still doing movements to make yourself comfortable for rest, please don't feel rushed by the sound of my voice. Allow yourself to create conditions for comfort, for rest, for ease. As you start to come down to rest, notice all the places that we created work and effort in the body. And see if you can let those places drop, become more supple, soft, and fluid. Allow your awareness now to trace again the maps of your body. Imagine now left shoulder to right butt bone and right shoulder to left butt bone, drawing the length and the volume of the torso, and allow yourself to still breathe into that volume. Breathe into the length. And then the entirety of the torso, the abdomen, the pelvis, the rib cage, allow it to be as heavy as it actually is. And imagine that you could unfurl the place between the brows so that it almost gets wider as you soften the skin of the face. Grant yourself the freedom to be as soft, as heavy, as broad as you actually are. And bring your awareness back into your body. And before you move or change anything just yet, grant yourself the immense privilege of noticing your body at rest, noticing your body at ease, Noticing your body supported, not just by the floor or by the props, but by you, by your practice. And if you'd like to stay laying down, if you're really sort of deep into your rest, you may stay here. And if you'd even like to sort of mute the rest of the recording, you can stay down and rest longer. If you feel ready to come up to a seat, you'll move slow. Fingers and toes, wrists and ankles move first. Keeping the face soft. Please don't feel rushed by the sound of my voice or the knowledge of a destination. Stay down if you want to stay down. Come up if you want to come up. If you're already up, map the torso, pelvis, and rib cage. Find your spit, your center. Find the pelvic floor to the crown of the head long. Pelvic floor to the crown of the head long. This is your central channel. And watch the breath move like a slow, gentle piston up and down in the central channel of the torso. And imagine that the inhale could move downward towards the pelvic floor. And the exhale could move up towards the crown of the head. Maybe it's just your imagination for now, but the inhale draws down towards the pelvic floor. Exhale up to the crown of the head. And if you're really controlling the breath here, because that allows you to see the visualization, then you continue to do so. But if you've got that in your mind, inhale down, exhale up, then start to let the breath become more natural. The movement more subtle. Until the breath is so relaxed that the movement feels more like a stillness in the center of you. Gently bring the hands to touch in front of the heart. Bow the gaze down over fingertips. Again, in gratitude to you for the ability, the willingness, the privilege to practice, regardless of how the practice actually takes shape, the mode, the situation. Draw the thumb knuckles of the third eye center, lift the head up. For all the ways that we can come together, even if we're physically apart. Namaste. Thank you. I will come and unmute you guys. As always, if there are any questions, it is always my pleasure. If you're joining the recording as opposed to live, you can always send me an email.